Sarah was only in her 4th hour of labor. I know, easy for me to say, only. But our first child, Tristan, had taken 18 hours. And this baby was in a hurry and crowning. I was up next to Sarah, holding her by the shoulders, when she roared. And then the midwife was holding this slimy, wriggling creature, coughing and crying in the dim candlelight of the birthing room. Seeing a penis between its legs, I said to Sarah, "Boy, it's a boy." The midwife wiped him down, cut the umbilical cord, and then gently handed him to me so that I could give him his first bath before handing him over to Sarah. And I stood there holding this brand new person, my child, in the soft, warm water of the tub, wiping every finger and toe and crevice. And then I said, "Whoops." "Whoops," said Sarah. "Did you drop him?" "Not a him," I said. "It's a her." What I had seen in the moments after birth was part of the umbilical cord. "It's a her." Little did I know. And then I took her to Sarah, who said, "Lily. We will call her Lily." 13 years later, when Lily came downstairs and announced to us that she wanted to explore being non-binary, Sarah and I only had the barest idea what that meant. "I want you to call me Noah," she said. Seeing the confused and hesitant look on our faces, her brother rolled his eyes at us and said, "Geez, it's no big deal. She is who he says he is." And with that, Noah found his staunchest ally, his cisgender, golden boy, big brother. We had been worried about Noah. We had been called to his school during the day to take him home because he had been rendered incapacitated by sobbing, shaking panic attacks, which usually occurred in gym class or in the locker room. We thought it was just an extreme version of adolescent angst, but as he explored his new identity, the panic attacks went away. Later, he was diagnosed with depression, which runs in both sides of his family. And I shudder to think what could have happened if we had not been accepting of his journey. And the journey was for all of us. Noah was patient and forgiving as we asked all the awkward questions, made all the mistakes around names and pronouns. He was determined and resolute through the hormone therapy, the top surgery, and his evolving journey into adulthood. He was the teacher. We were the students. And his wisdom, courage, and creativity were breathtaking. So what did I learn sitting in the front of the class watching this astonishing person grow fully into being? I learned that I was attached to some romantic idea about a dad guiding a daughter into womanhood. I had to grieve the death of the cisgender daughter I thought I was going to raise. And I discovered, much to my liberal progressive surprise, that I was oddly attached to the binary definition of what a man is and what a woman is. So easy, just look between your legs. See, despite some evidence to the contrary, I'm about as conventional as it gets. Straight, cisgender, middle-aged white guy. Apex of privilege. And Noah got me to understand that privilege comes with a basket of assumptions I didn't even know I had. Noah got me to ask bigger questions like, why am I like this? How do I feel about being a man? What does being a man mean anyway? And I watched with amazement as this teenager I adored more than life itself explored gender. What does that mean? Explore gender. What does it look like? Well, for Noah, it looked like dressing in hoodies and work boots to look more like his big brother. It looked like getting cast in the male lead in his middle school production of James and the Giant Peach. It meant coming downstairs for breakfast one morning wearing a dress and looking his confused parents in the face and saying, "Deal with it." It meant going on vacation with us and wearing a dude's baggy trunks and nothing else one day, and the next day, a black bikini. So what was the most confusing part of all of this? For me, his straight cisgender dada, it was this. I recognized myself in his androgyny. I had an unconventional childhood. I was basically a hippie kid bouncing back and forth between divorced parents. And then at around age 11, I became part of a very conventional heteronormative family with a dad and a stepmom and 3 half-siblings growing up around me. I went to a fancy coat and tie prep school, and I actually found an identity rebelling against that culture. I wore thin ties. I pierced my ear, and I wore clogs before they were cool. But inside, I yearned to be something I could never be. Something my society taught me I should be. A hyper-masculine, unfeeling Marlboro man. And this chasm grew inside of me between what I instinctually knew I was and what I felt like I had to be in order to be valuable, loved, desired. This dichotomy has tormented me my whole life. It's played a role in the dissolution of love relationships. It's limited the way I experience sex and desire. It's made me feel like an ugly, defective loser because I am not, and I never will be, a Marlboro man. So let me ask the cisgender guys here tonight. Can you relate? You ever feel like you're performing the role of being a man, but you can't remember who the playwright is? Do you ever hear something come out of your mouth and wonder, where did that bullshit come from? Is that me? Do you ever suffer in secret? Too ashamed to reach out and ask for help because you are terrified of not being enough, of not measuring up, of not being a real man. Because I see this playing out with cisgender men every day. In depression, addiction, in the violence we perpetrate, in the control we insist on, in the suicide we give into. Cisgender men are taught to inhabit a persona that says, I got this. Nothing touches me. I am the solution to all the problems. And this is what I thought a man was. A human doing without feelings, whose value is determined by how much money I make, my ability to dominate, and who I fuck. But what I want you to understand is that Noah liberated me from all of this just by having the courage to be himself. He got me to let go of so much of that toxic crap. One of the most remarkable moments I had observing Noah's non-binariness was when he performed in a final presentation for a professional acting training program in a Shakespeare class. Every student got to do 2 scenes, and Noah's 2 scenes were as Claudio from Measure for Measure, and then as Kate from Taming of the Shrew. 2 shows that I had acted in professionally. And I remember thinking how true he was being to Shakespeare's original company of actors, all men. And I'm biased, but he killed it in both roles. And I remember thinking, that son of a bitch is going to audition for twice as many roles as I ever did. And the production of Taming of the Shrew that I was in, I also played Kate. It was a professional production of an all-male cast in Philadelphia, and our director was a cisgender woman who said right at the outset, no pretending to be women. We're not doing drag. I want you to attack these roles exactly as you are. My costume was a tight t-shirt and a hoop skirt that had no fabric on it, so you saw through the bones to the tight biker shorts I was wearing underneath. So imagine me as a person named Kate. And yes, I had to kiss a man on stage passionately. It was under this beautiful overhead spotlight. And I remember thinking, beard stubble sucks. But never, not once, was I worried about my manhood. I could give myself fully to that kiss because I know who I am. Complicated, maybe confident person who has multitudes inside of him, including Kate, who, like our trans children, is an extraordinary person in difficult circumstances. So guys, what would you do if I chose to live in the world as someone named Kate? Would you shame me? Bully me? Spit on me? What will you do for our children exploring gender? Will you exile them from your heart because they're not who you expected them to be? Does any child grow up to be who we expect them to be? Will you hide in your fear from their truth, labeling them a freak that doesn't deserve what you deserve? Or will you be a man and do what love requires? Extend your hand, lift them up, give them shelter, and ask, tell me, who are you? Noah lives in Germany, in Berlin now, because with the escalating violence against trans people in the United States, it is not safe for him in this country. And I support his choice, but I'm heartbroken every day because I miss my child. He's one of the 2 great joys in my life, but he's having a great adventure, and he's in a committed relationship with a cisgender man named Niles, he's okay. Noah and I had a conversation recently about love and attraction. And he told me that he's fascinated by masculinity in all of its abundant forms. And he told me the kind of man that he's attracted to. Strong hands, soft heart, I learned that from you, Dada. Thank you.